So let's go ahead and compare the pros and the cons of the iPhone 16 with the older iPhone 11. So at first this might be an absurd comparison, but there's not a lot of difference, honestly, between the iPhone 16 and the iPhone 11. Yes, there has been some super great improvements in the iPhone 16, which was released in 2024, compared to the iPhone 11, which was released 5 years ago in 2019. So there's a lot of years separating these devices, and obviously the iPhone 16 has a lot of better stuff than the iPhone 11, but do people really even notice or take advantage of those new things as to opposed to just picking up a really, still good iPhone 11? Let's take a look. So let's just compare like the looks of these devices. And honestly, if you were to flip these devices and just look at the back at a really quick glance, you really wouldn't notice a difference. So the iPhone 16 supposedly has like a new array of camera setup in the back, but it really just goes back to the iPhone 11 setup. There's two cameras on the back, and it really doesn't look that much different. It just looks like the lenses are bigger. You flip the devices over to the front, and they both have Face ID. They both have some type of notch in the front. Except that the iPhone 16 has like a dynamic island. But other than that, there's no real visual difference if you were to hold these devices. Both of these have a great build quality. If you don't use these with a case, they will feel very, very similar. They have glass all over, a very premium feeling on both of these devices. Remember, the iPhone 11, when it was launched, it was a flagship. And just like the iPhone 16, it's just 5 years ago. But Apple has never really skimped on quality with their phones. So they both feel really good, regardless of when they were released. If you do hold them in your hand, one with the other, you do feel a little bit more lightweight on the iPhone 16. It is kind of substantial, but not really. The iPhone 11 is by no means a heavy phone, but it is a little bit heavier than the iPhone 16. One actual really big advantage on the iPhone 11 is that it has the eSIM and the nano SIM card built in, whereas the iPhone 16 only has eSIM. So if you like to swap out SIM cards, swap out phone numbers, or use two phone numbers at the same time, it's a lot easier on the iPhone 11. And I think that's a big advantage, especially when you're traveling or you just have multiple phone numbers and SIM cards. So you had an advantage right there on the iPhone 11. Both of these have IP68 dust and water resistance, just a little bit more on the iPhone 16. To a lot of people, I think most people don't really matter that much, because unless you're really clumsy and like to take your phone in the water a lot, it's not going to make a big difference. They both have NFC for payments, so it's not a big difference either. The screens, the iPhone 16 has 60 hertz refresh rate, same thing as the iPhone 11. So you're not really getting a much better screen, really, besides a brighter screen on the iPhone 16. They're both around the same exact size, 6.1 inches of screen. So you get a little bit thinner bezels on the iPhone 16. As for software, well, they're exactly the same because they both run iOS 18. But obviously the iPhone 11, this might be the last update it's going to receive. So that's probably the one big difference. But obviously it is already 5 years old, so the iPhone 16 will continue to get updates. But if you were just to compare them right now together, they will run the exact same software. Chipset, obviously the Apple A18 on the iPhone 16 is going to be much faster throughout the years. On day-to-day apps, the A13 Bionic on the iPhone 11, if you run everyday apps, maybe 95% of the apps out there, these phones will feel exactly the same. You won't notice any difference in messages, in social media, in simple like websites and all that stuff. You might see a little bit faster in the iPhone 16, but nothing noticeable to really make a difference. Storage, you basically get double the storage on the iPhone 16, 128 versus 64 on the iPhone 11. Same thing with RAM, you get to double. But like I said before, the chipset and the RAM, you're only going to notice that if you handle a lot of graphic intensive games and apps. But everyday apps, you're not going to see much of a difference. Let's move on to the cameras. It's very important to a lot of people, but in my personal opinion, I don't think there's a big jump from the iPhone 11 camera to the iPhone 16, especially if you're not a photographer. If you're not like super into photography and taking super high-res videos and all that stuff, you're not gonna notice a big difference. The iPhone, regardless of which model you take, always takes good pictures and good video. And the iPhone 11 does have the same camera setup. It has two cameras, a main camera and an ultra wide, and you're gonna get, you know, the same type of 99% of people won't notice a difference between both of these cameras. So they both shoot 4K. Same thing for the selfie camera, you also get 4K. Yeah, the iPhone 11 is offering a lot of bang for your buck. And I'll get to my last statement in a little bit. Bluetooth 5.3 on the iPhone 16 versus the 5.0. Not gonna see much difference there either. Charging is going to be a huge difference for some people because you do get USB Type-C on the 16 versus Lightning on the iPhone 11, but that's an obvious difference right there. Yeah, more phones are getting USB Type-C, which is, I think, probably one of the biggest differences between these devices, honestly. Both of these, like I said, have Face ID. Battery life, they're going to be very similar, but I give the edge to the iPhone 16, but both of them will get you pretty much the whole day. They both have wireless charging, although you get a little bit more faster wireless charging on the iPhone 16, but both of them will charge in around 50% in 30 minutes. So I don't see much difference between these devices. And the biggest difference, I think, at the end of the day, is going to be the price that you pay for these. So you're paying $800 to $830 fully unlocked on the iPhone 16 versus you could definitely find an iPhone 11 in really good shape for less than $150. And that's probably the biggest reason why the iPhone 11 is still such a good phone to even pick up and use in 2024 going into 2025. Both of these phones handle your day-to-day tasks, and they both run iOS 18. They look the same, they have the same amount of cameras, they both have Face ID. It is, you know, this is very hard to distinguish these devices. If you were to just kind of just flash a regular person both of these phones, take pictures and use them, I think that the iPhone 16 just is a hair bit better. The new things that the iPhone 16 Apple is marketing with this is the camera shutter shortcut button and the action button, which honestly is just a gimmick for the most part. Most people will forget that is even on there. So other than that and the USB Type-C charger, there's not much difference between the iPhone 11 and the iPhone 16, but you will see a difference in price. You know, I just picked up an iPhone 11 for like $100 brand new on prepaid. And honestly, booting it up for the first time and just using it, it feels so fast, especially when it's a brand new condition. I mean, it just feels like, you know, Apple is still selling this. The iPhone 11 can still pass for a brand new device in the Apple store. And people will probably pick it and be like, hey, this is a cheaper phone, but it feels good, it runs good. I think I'll pick this one up. If the iPhone 11 was still sold in Apple stores, I bet you it would still sell a lot if Apple were to sell it at a very low price point. So yeah, that's been my comparison of the pros and cons of the iPhone 16 and the iPhone 11 here in late 2024.